What was the first time you realized your parents didn't really know you? For the longest time, I thought my parents knew me better than anyone else. They were the ones who raised me after all. They fed me, dressed me, taught me how to ride a bike, scolded me when I misbehaved, and praised me when I brought home a good grade. As a child, it never occurred to me that maybe, just maybe, they weren't seeing the real me. The first cracks in that belief showed up around middle school. I was always a kid who loved drawing. In kindergarten, when most kids were finger painting blobs and stick figures, I was sketching entire made-up worlds. By second grade, I was filling notebooks with doodles of characters and scenes. By fourth grade, I had won a tiny school art contest, and my piece hung in the hallway for months. I thought it was obvious. This is who I am. But looking back, I realized my parents never really noticed. One memory sticks out crystal clear. I was about 11. We were sitting in the living room, and I was showing my mom a drawing I'd worked on for 2 days. It was a dragon, complete with scales, wings, and shading I'd carefully blended with cheap colored pencils. My mom glanced at it for maybe 2 seconds and said, "That's nice. Did you finish your math homework?" And just like that, the moment was gone. I brushed it off at the time, but deep down I felt a sting. It was like the thing I cared most about was invisible to her. The real turning point came in 9th grade. My school held a career day project where every student had to research and present what they wanted to be when they grew up. While some kids picked lawyer or scientist because it sounded impressive, I went all in on my dream. I stayed up late working on posters, sketches, even a mini portfolio. When my turn came, I stood in front of the class and proudly announced, "I want to be an illustrator." The room clapped, my teacher smiled, and for once I felt seen. But that feeling didn't last. That night, my parents sat me down at dinner. My dad said, "Your teacher called us. She said you want to be an artist?" He said the word artist like it was a joke. I nodded, expecting them to finally understand what I'd been showing them all these years. But instead, my mom laughed softly and said, "No, you're too smart for that. You're going to be a doctor or an engineer. Artists don't make money. You'll thank us later." I remember staring at my plate of rice and vegetables, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. How could they not know? Hadn't they seen me drawing constantly? Didn't they notice that art was the only thing that made me light up? It was like they had been raising a completely different kid in their heads, one that was practical, obedient, and interested in what they wanted me to be. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling thinking, if they don't know this about me, then what else don't they know? As the years went on, more moments piled up. On my 16th birthday, my aunt gave me a sketchbook, and I almost cried because it was the first gift that actually felt like me. My parents, meanwhile, bought me a calculator for college prep. They were proud of it, but I didn't even open the box for weeks. When I talked about music, they assumed I liked the same safe, radio-friendly stuff they listened to. But in reality, I was sneaking off to listen to indie bands and alternative rock that spoke to me in a way their choices never did. When I once mentioned a favorite song, my dad wrinkled his nose and said, "That's not real music. You'll grow out of it." Even with friends, my parents couldn't remember their names, or they'd assume I was just like whoever I was hanging out with. They didn't realize I often felt like the odd one out, clinging to art because it gave me identity when I didn't fit anywhere else. The hardest part wasn't that they didn't know these things. It was that they didn't want to know. Anytime I tried to tell them, they brushed it aside as a phase, a distraction, or something unimportant. One of the most painful memories came during a parent-teacher conference. My art teacher pulled my mom aside and said, "Your child has real talent. You should encourage it." I was standing there, heart pounding, so ready for my mom to finally recognize it. Instead, she smiled politely and said, "That's sweet, but we're focusing on academics. Art is just a hobby." It felt like a door slamming shut. By the time I hit college, I realized the truth. My parents didn't really know me. They knew my grades, my chores, my report cards, my responsibilities, but they didn't know my favorite band, my dream job, the things that made me feel alive, or the struggles I kept bottled up. They didn't know how lonely I sometimes felt, how much I hated being compared to cousins, how much art meant to me. And to be fair, I know now as an adult, they weren't trying to be cruel. They grew up in survival mode, where success meant stability, and stability meant practical jobs. To them, wanting to be an artist sounded like wanting to starve. They didn't understand that support mattered more than pushing me into a mold. But the first time I realized they didn't really know me was that night after career day, when they looked at me like a stranger for saying I wanted to be an illustrator. That moment never left me. Now, when I think about having kids someday, I don't just want to feed them and clothe them. I want to actually know them. I want to notice what makes their eyes light up, what songs they replay, what worlds they build in their imagination. Because I never want my child to sit at the dinner table, spill out their dream, and be met with confusion or dismissal. I want them to feel seen in a way I didn't.